What is up, watch friends? Welcome to another episode of Talking Timepieces with Tony. I'm Tony. My TV is glaring in my glasses, so I'm going to turn that off there to a certain extent. But anyway, today I'm wearing my Rolex 36 millimeter Wimbledon dial Jubilee bracelet. Jubilee bracelet and a fluted bezel. Today, sometimes I get questions like when I do the Q&A and I answer the questions. Occasionally I'll get a question that I kind of feel warrants an entire video. And in this case, I feel that this question definitely warrants a video on its own because I don't think it gets addressed enough really when it comes down to it. So anyway, let's roll the intro and we'll get into it. All right, so I get this, I get a lot of questions, and in this case, I get this question from this guy, S. Busis Ozulu, SBUSISO Zulu 995. I'm going to read the question. I'm going to go into a few things with this. I was offered a Rolex date just. Is that how we're going to start? I was offered a Rolex date just with a Jubilee and fluted mint green, picking it up tomorrow. But anxiety for spending such a big amount is killing me. Any advice if this is even worth it? I am freaking out and scared I will get buyer's remorse. Dude, you are not ready to have a Rolex. I'm going to explain this. And when I say Rolex, any big item luxury brand, there's a lot of elements to that. And for one, it sounds like you're just freaking in full panic mode. When you have to panic, or when you start panicking about purchasing something like that, I get it. Whether you're buying a house or a new car, there's a certain amount of anxiety or it can be, not always. Some people just go out and do it, you know what I mean? But the majority of people, especially when you're buying a new house or something, can be really, really stressful. But in the long run, that's an investment that's far better than a watch, right? So this is why I've always stated I recommend when you start your watch journey. Now, I don't know what kind of watch journey this dude has. Keep in mind, I also answered the question because this question was quite a few days ago. So either you bought the watch or you didn't, but I did give you my quick advice at the time, but you didn't respond. So I don't know what you actually did. But here's the thing, when I talk about getting into watches, or when anyone's getting into watches, this is why I recommend starting low. When I started, we started with like Swatch, spending $50 on a watch. Granted, $50 in 1986 was a different $50 than it is today, but at the same time, it's still $50, right? And then you work your way up, then all of a sudden you're spending $100 on a Guess watch or a Fossil watch. You're like, oh, I just spent $100. Then from there, you kind of go, oh, Movado was really happening back in the early 90s. I mean, they were the watch to have, that and a Tag Heuer Link. So then you buy the Movado for, how much was it, $400 or $500, and you go, I just spent $400 or $500 on a freaking watch, man. And you start to learn, and you start understanding what you like, what you don't like, how much you're comfortable with spending. And then once you get into that sort of thing, you go, okay. And each time you jump to the next sort of price point, it can be stressful in itself. Well, I've never spent $700 on a watch. So then you go to, like the Movado with the bracelet or whatever, those were like $900 at like Macy's or some shit like that. You go, wow, I've almost spent $1,000 on a watch. You get to that price, then the next price point where it's $1,000 and more, and that's your next big sort of milestone. As for, say, milestone, not as in like you just got a promotion or something like that, but you know, are you ready to spend that money? Are you ready to jump into that next price point, that next category, right? And then eventually you do or you don't. You maintain where you're at. I know plenty of people that have a lot of money that still, will wear like a Raymond Weil or something like that. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't matter. The watch doesn't make the person or whatever. It doesn't matter. You know, you can be very successful and wear a Casio, and no one gives a shit what kind of watch you have. Unless you're in that watch circle and everyone has to talk about, oh, look at me, I got a freaking Rolex. You know what I mean? But for the most part, no one cares. Now, even in my 20s, man, when I was rocking and rolling, dude, driving a Corvette convertible, black bandana, long hair, and wearing a Rolex, no one cared. I mean, some of them were more impressed with the car and, whatever. But in the grand scheme of things, if you're cool, you're cool. And if people like you, they're never going to like you because of your watch. And if they do, they're not worth hanging out with, right? So then you jump into that higher price point. Once you get past that $1,000, you're going to go to the next threshold, the next price point, maybe $1,500 or $2,000, and then you really start to look into what you want, right? And then that's how it really should start. That's just an organic way of being progressive in your watch collection. And you don't ever have to go any further than an Oris, for instance, you know what I mean, at a couple $1,000. You don't have to have a Rolex. You don't have to have a Vacheron Constantin. You don't have to have a Jaeger LeCoultre. You don't have to have a Patek Philippe. None of that shit matters. It's like, and when you're purchasing and you're deciding to make a big purchase, not only do there's different variables in your life. Can you afford it, and can you afford it comfortably? Some people can't really afford it and they do it anyway, but they don't care. They don't mind. They go, okay, I know what I'm getting myself into, and I'm gonna be comfortable with that, and then that's fine too. When you get into, let's just go to when the whole COVID thing and the hype. I mean, shit, dude. Everyone had a YouTube channel. Watches were going absolutely out of the freaking, stratosphere in price. I mean, a lot of brands, not just Rolex, not just Patek, not just, you know what I mean? There was brands, some Cartiers that you would have totally lost money on, you would have made money on. And it's not like that anymore, right? So what happens is you get these younger people. Now, I don't know how old this guy is, that sort of think, I have to have a Rolex. I have to, because they believe the hype and all the YouTube videos that they've been watching of these young guys, like slinging Rolex, and they make it sound like you have to have a Rolex, you have to have a Patek, or whatever it may be, but you can't get one at the AD, get your name on the list, you know what I mean? Whatever it may be. So these people are putting their name on the list. Well, I've been on the list. And a lot of them probably didn't expect they were going to get the call, It's like, well, I'm not going to get the call anyway. And then all of a sudden, your AD calls you and says, hey, guess what? I got your watch. And then you go, oh, shit. What do I do? What do I do? I mean, I have to have the watch, but can I afford it? You know what I mean? Just because you have $10,000 doesn't mean you can afford the watch. Well, you have the money to buy the watch, but can you really afford it? Can you afford to part with $10,000 for a watch? Are you financing it? Well, I can afford whatever my credit card payment's going to be to finance it. I wouldn't recommend doing it that way, but some people do, That's why you'll see on some of these websites, that say Affirm, we take Affirm, those loans and whatever it is, and all that bullshit. But, so you have to really understand that yes, you may get that call. Two, can you really afford it? But that's the problem. All the young people, they want to start up here when they haven't even begun to realize what's going on down here to get to here. You want to go straight to the top, and then there's nowhere else to go. I mean, granted, you can go Patek, you can get a higher, but the thing is you're pretty much starting at a pretty high level, and you've missed everything in between to get to here, and not spend enough time to fully understand what it is you want, what you like, and are you just buying it because of the hype, Again, nobody cares that you're wearing this. You're wearing it. and that's all that matters, you know. But if it's gonna hurt you to the point where you're in full-blown panic mode, don't buy the watch. You shouldn't be even thinking about it. It shouldn't have been a thought. The minute you sent me this message, you should have said, fuck it, I ain't buying it. And it's not, no one's going to look down upon you for saying, why didn't you buy it? There's going to be some comments probably like, well, you should buy it anyway, you only live once. Not if you're going to be stressing out about it, you know. Oh, you could always sell it. Well, then what's the freaking point of buying it? Because you can't flip it. What you got going for you when you buy something like this, you can wear it for quite some time, and if you decide that you have to sell it, or you're just not comfortable, then yeah, you can sell it. You're not going to make any money on it. There's no flipping, for a Rolex Datejust. I mean, you might get your money back. You probably wouldn't get all of it back, but you'll get the majority of it back. So in the grand scheme of things, you didn't lose all that much. That's the one thing you got going when you're buying a Rolex. You buy a Zenith at $7,800, $8,000, that's a different story. You know what I mean? Because you're not going to get your money back on it. You're going to take a pretty big hit with Zenith or Tag Heuer, Cartier, even probably. Well, there's just plenty of brands that Grand Seiko. You're just going to take a freaking bath if you try to sell that on the secondary market after you bought it. So the whole thing is you really have to think, that if you're going to get that call, are you really prepared to make that commitment to spend the money? Because if you're not, then don't do it. Don't do it, man. It's not worth it. A watch is not worth stressing over, man. There's too much else in life. I don't know what you got going on in your life or whatever else, but a watch, come on. A watch is a luxury item that nobody needs. Start with a Seiko or something, just start slowly before you decide you want to jump right to the top. Once you get to the top, there's nowhere else to go but down. Think of a lot of bands, musicians that got famous really fast. There was nowhere else to go. First record sells 5 million copies or whatever, and then I'm going back a little ways. And then the second record just flops. And next thing you know, you're dropped from the record label and you're just a freaking Trivial Pursuit question. Nobody knows who you are anymore. It's better to start slow and build, than just go, hey, So I guess really when it comes down to it, really think before you decide you want this, man. Don't follow the hype, Don't watch these channels that like you get into this like, oh my God, and like what it could be an automobile, like a Porsche, and all of a sudden you're like, I gotta have one, and then you spend all your money on the car and you ain't got $10 to put gas in the thing, you know what I mean? So just be careful, start organically, and don't panic, man. Buy something cheaper, spend $1,000 as opposed to $10,000, and if you have to sell it, you're going to take a hit, but you're not going to take, losing $1,000 as opposed to what else you could lose. You know what I mean? You don't know where the watch market is going. Your $10,000 watch may be, worth $6,000. You know what I mean? And then you take a $4,000 hit. And I'm talking about with tax. I can't remember what the retail is on this, even though I paid retail for it. But with tax, it was $9,000 something, I think. So just again, don't put yourself in that position where you're going to stress out, worry, or anything. You know what I mean? It's just not worth it. So that being said, I appreciate everyone who likes, subscribes, watches my videos. That's what helps me keep motivated to keep doing this. Other than that, you guys have a great rest of your day. I appreciate it.